For today's Monday session, I wanted to talk about it's this idea of perfection. Um, just a little anecdote for you. I'm looking at my journal. I have my journal here right now, and I don't want you to think I'm some kind of like cool journaler because I've only just started doing this. I got this. I think I was telling you folks this last time. I got this idea from some Instagrammer who said, if you want to really like flex your creativity muscles, just get a paper journal and write 3 pages of free form stream of consciousness journaling every day. And I've been trying. So I haven't done it every day. I've done it, I'm keeping track of my dates. I did it a couple days in a row and then I missed a couple days and then I'm back at it. And it's been a very imperfect exercise, but I'm still doing it because there's a lot of magic that happens just shy of perfection. So anyway, I was journaling this morning, doing my journal, and I started thinking about this perfection piece, and I wrote down a few ideas. But the basic gist I want to get across to you here, here's the question: when has perfection actually worked for you? Perfection works when you're working it. Perfection works when you're in the act of being perfect, but it doesn't linger. The efforts of perfection don't really stay with us when we're no longer being perfect. I would offer that being perfect only works when you're being perfect. And then what happens when you're not being perfect? When you're being imperfect? Now we are failing, right? We are in failure land. We are in the shame spiral. We're in that loop of just terrible self-talk, just mean. Oh, I'm such a loser. I couldn't be perfect. Just because we weren't perfect, now we're on the pendulum has swung and now we're just like don't like losers, right? I don't like it. But also it's very inflexible. I would just ask and encourage you to be more flexible in between this black and white. I'm a very black and white person. I'm very on or off. I'm very in or out. I'm very, it's like that's not working. I'm sorry, but that's not working. It only works if the pendulum has swung to the good side. If the pendulum has now swung to the bad side, then what? We don't cope well with that, right? So I just don't see the value in being this black or white. There's tons of value in the middle, in that gray zone. And I actually wrote some down on my journal. The gray area in between perfect and imperfect contains concepts and ideas like, number one, trying. Trying. Just trying stuff. Giving it a whirl. I'm going to try a journaling exercise. Just going to give it a whirl, try it on for size. And something totally new, something I'm not an expert at, something I'm not perfect at because it's new and I'm just trying it, right? Trying. Trying is in between perfect and imperfect. There's incredible value in trying. You know this. Like, what if I do this? What if I just try this? What if I try journaling? What if I try having a big breakfast for the next 3 days? Like, just short experiments. 3 days, protein forward breakfast. See what happens, right? The other piece that comes along with running experiments is collecting data. So run the experiment, collect the data. I ate breakfast every day for 3 days, or at least I tried to. The data I collected was, man, it's really hard for me to cook breakfast in the morning. Man, I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry in the morning. I don't know what to make. I got sick of eggs. Like, you're collecting all the data. Just run an experiment, collect data. That's the scientific way. That's how scientists do it, right? They don't have the answers. They're just like, let's see what happens if we do this. Tons of value in running experiments and collecting data with no attachment to the outcome. Right? Okay, here's an important one. This lives in between perfect and imperfect, and it's just a tiny bit of real talk, so buckle up. Making choices like a grown-up. Making choices like a grown-up. We're all grown-ups here. So rather than trying to be perfect and hit your macros and hit your whatever, hit your step count, hit your journaling goal, just be grown up and do responsible things. Just be responsible for yourself, right? Being generally responsible is kind of the subheading to make choices like a grown-up. Be generally responsible. Now here's the flip side to that coin. Explore pleasure. So in between perfect and imperfect is the opportunity to explore pleasure, like hedonistic moments, treats, right? So if we are making generally grown-up decisions, responsible decisions most of the time, we have room for treats. We don't live in treat zone because like I think when we live in treat zone, like, oh man, I've been really indulging too much lately. Now the pendulum has swung over to imperfect. I'm an imperfect person because I was enjoying myself. No, hell, we're wired for pleasure. You need to enjoy yourself. Super critical. And this all lives in the gray zone between perfect and imperfect because you're kind of oscillating between responsibility and pleasure, right? That's how a grown up would do it. And I identify as a hedonistic person. I love pleasures. I love treats. I love to kind of cut loose. We can't be just like buttoned up adults all the time, because then you're gonna backslide. Okay. Knowing what makes you feel good, bad, and indifferent. So just paying attention, having some presence, inside here. So this goes back to running experiments and collecting the data. Really important data to collect is, I made this particular health choice and now I feel like hot garbage. Or I made this particular health choice and I feel okay about it, or I feel really good about it. Just sort of categorizing these decisions that you've made so that you start to form an inventory of what makes you feel good, bad, and indifferent. Valuable, powerful. Neither perfect nor imperfect, just information. Okay, my final bullet point on my list here that lives in the gray area between perfect and imperfect, between on and off, between in and out, between all or nothing, is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is generally defined as the belief that you can do things on your own without needing outside help. And as a health coach, that's my job, is to deliver you to that. So self-efficacy, knowing what you already know and relying less on outside influences. So once you know what you know, once you have this unconscious competence, you know what you know. So you've run the experiments, you've collected the data, you know how you feel, good, bad, or indifferent. You've made generally responsible decisions and you've dabbled in pleasure. All these things I said. This delivers you to self-efficacy. And then these whole ends of the black and white spectrum go away and you just live in this gray zone in the middle that is super comfortable, super easy. You know how to do it because you created it and uncovered it for yourself. Self-efficacy, the practice of it, lives in the gray zone between black and white, between on and off, between perfect and imperfect. So I'm inviting you to get very comfortable in the gray area between being super good and super bad, or whatever you want to call it, because it hasn't worked. Focusing on perfection has not worked. I would love it if you, all of you, all of us, could become very comfortable with with just accepting the fact that you probably won't be perfect. You might have glimmers of it. You will have glimmers of perfection, and that feels good. And I also invite you to feel good even when you're not being perfect. We don't need to be these absolutes. It's just not working for you because we're here to make some changes, right? We're here to make some changes, big changes, get healthy, whatever that looks like for you. But before we can start, changing the way you eat, changing the way you move, changing the way you live, sleep, stress, play, whatever, we have to get up here and say, okay, let's mentally prepare for what this is going to be like. We're definitely not going to knock it out of the park. Look, absolutely not going to knock it out of the park. Like, period, right? It's not happening. So what happens when you swing and miss, when you when you don't knock it out of the park, right? How are you going to bounce back from that? You got to learn to bounce back. And I believe that learning to bounce back happens by just living your life with perfection and imperfection off the menu. It's a massive mental shift, but I just invite you, one more time, sort of as a finale, if you ever say to yourself or say out loud to other people, I'm an all or nothing person, think about that. You're either all or you're nothing. That's a lot of pressure on you. You're not nothing. You're not nothing. Just because you're not all doesn't mean you're nothing. There's a whole pile of stuff that exists before you're nothing. I honestly have to tell you, you'll only change You'll only have sustained change if you get real cozy in the gray area between perfect and imperfect. That's all I got for you today.